So, we've discussed in detail what is wrong with Oblivion Mages Guild Questline. So how about we stop being so negative and focus on how to fix this questline? What's up guys, Acerthorn here and welcome to another lore and discussion video. Last week I discussed just why the Mages Guild questline from the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion was the worst faction questline in Elder Scrolls history. If you haven't seen that video, you can watch it by clicking on the card that I provide right here. Anyway, today I would like to offer my rewritten version of the questline and explain why I believe my version is better than what we got in the game. So without further ado, let's get underway. Contrary to what you might have expected, especially given what I complained about last week, I would actually like to keep the recommendations section of this questline in the game. Having to earn your way to the Arcane University and therefore earn access to the spellmaking and enchanting altars is honestly a worthwhile goal, and it's something you actually should have to work towards. I honestly felt like Morrowind felt way too easy when I was able to create my own spells as early as Balmora as soon as I signed up for the Mages Guild, though I'll go into more detail about that next week when I talk about Morrowind. However, the tedium of those quests definitely needs to be trimmed down a notch, so instead, you should only need a recommendation from a single guild hall. Rather, getting that recommendation is a lot easier said than done. You can choose which of the 7 local guild halls you'll get the recommendation from, but you should have to do a mini quest line of about 4 to 5 quests before the guild hall leader will agree to write the recommendation for you. The quests that are assigned to you would start out tedious and menial at first, but would gradually build up in importance as you got ever closer to the elusive recommendation. With each quest, completing it would be much easier if you acquired advice from each of the members in that guild hall, much like with the Dark Brotherhood questline. This way you can actually develop an attachment to them. Regardless of which guild hall you choose to pursue your recommendation, someone there should be in possession of Black Soul Gems. That way you can still obtain the plot requisite exposition that you originally got from Cheydinhal. Not only that, but having a closet necromancer in every guild hall instead of just Cheydinhal raises the stakes by showing just how widespread the practice is within the guild. However, the exposition from Breville that a mage's staff carries great symbolic importance to its owner won't be in the questline, since it never amounts to anything in the story. Remember last time I told you about Chekhov's gun? Well, there are 2 ways to fix that problem. Have the rifle go off, or take the rifle off the wall. For the mage's staff plot device, we are doing the latter. Anyway, once you discover the Black Soul Gems, that should be enough for the guild hall leader to write a recommendation for you, and then off you go to the Arcane University. But before you set out, the guild hall leader gives you an optional quest objective. It is optional that you do so, but he or she asks you to speak to the other guild hall members and say goodbye to them. As each of the guild hall members give you a heartfelt farewell, perhaps with one person even being brought to tears that he may never see you again, you should feel sad about leaving, and feel like you've really grown to care for these guys. That about does it for the local guild halls, but before I move on to the Arcane University, there's one final piece of world building I would like to add. To protect the guild's secrets, each guild hall, except for the first room in the hall, would not be open to the public. To protect the guild's secrets, every room past the first room would be completely inaccessible. I don't simply mean that entry isn't allowed, I mean that an enchantment is placed on the doors, not unlike the in-universe enchantment that is placed on the gates in the Arcane University that prevents you from entering before you're allowed to, so that entry beyond the first room is literally impossible. So, now that I've placed that rifle on the wall, stay tuned for the bang. When you get to the Arcane University, since we're scrapping the whole Mage's Staff subplot, we need another conceit to get you to Wellspring Cave. So we'll go with the fact that, as a mage, it is important that you at least know how to make a magical staff, since that's a skill that all mages need. When we get to Wellspring Cave, you won't immediately notice anything out of the ordinary. The people inside the cave are standing upright and walking around. But when one of them sees you, they attack on sight, grunting the whole time. Not fight banner, but grunts. After you put one of them down, you can then travel a little bit deeper into the dungeon and find another one who attacks you on sight. Meanwhile, the one you just killed runs up and attacks you from behind. Somehow he managed to get up despite the fact that you literally just killed him. What in Oblivion is going on here? You can't go back out the way you came, as the door is now locked and that lock requires a non-existent key. Your only way out is to go out the back door. As you fight your way through the cave past all these grunting mages who won't stay down, you eventually reach the grove, and only then do the actual necromancers appear. Now, why is this better than how the original game does it? Well, for starters, it gives Wellspring Cave a unique feel, instead of it just being another interchangeable dungeon crawl. But also, even more importantly, it keeps the audience in suspense. Your first time playing the questline, you'll have no idea why the mages are attacking you or why they keep getting up after you kill them. Then, the reveal that there are necromancers pulling the strings actually causes everything to suddenly make sense. So, you return to Romanus and report your findings at Wellspring Cave. You don't have an unfinished staff to bring him, but the news alone is ominous to him. Anyway, since your mage's staff lessons are put on hold until further notice, you are instead sent to Vatican to help with the excavation. As I have no real problems with that quest in the original, I'll keep it more or less the same here as well. Now notice what I just did there. I completely skipped over the quest's ulterior motives. You know why? Because we don't need it. In the two quests that Count Hasseldor is involved in, he literally provides no contributions to the main plot that you can't get elsewhere. So let's take that rifle off the wall, shall we? In addition to trimming the fat out of this quest line, sending you to Vatican immediately after Wellspring Cave causes the guild to appear much more competent. It shows that the university actually has a plan and structure in place for new recruits, and more importantly, they have contingency plans in case something goes wrong. This is in stark contrast to the quest line we find in the game, where it's unclear if they had anything in store for you after the mage's staff had the necromancers not thrown a monkey wrench into their plans. When you returned from Vatican, you were told that an investigation has shown that all 7 of the local guild halls have had necromancer spies within them. Since your character will have only uncovered a single necromancer when you arrived at the guild hall, this would actually come as a shock to you, at least on a first playthrough. This helps to raise the stakes by showing just how widespread the necromancer menace is. Luckily, they managed to capture one of the closet necromancers alive, randomly chosen from one of the 6 guild halls you didn't get your recommendation from. You are tasked with interrogating him and finding out just what the Oblivion these Black Soul Gems actually do. This is a substitute for the quest Necromancer's Moon. Instead of it being yet another Necromancer dungeon crawl, we instead get an interrogation mission, not unlike the Fighters Guild quest Information Gathering. In addition to this adding some variety to the questline, it also helps to portray the guild as strong and competent in its own right. In the short time you were away at Vatican, the guild not only hatched a plan to deal with the necromancer attack, but actually uncovered 6 different necromancers from 6 different guild halls in only a few short days, and more importantly, without your assistance. Honestly, it makes sense at this point that the necromancers would need the likes of Mana Marco at their backs to be able to stand up to the guild this powerful and organized. So after you finish interrogating this guy, you're told to put him out of his misery. As he breathes his last breath, his dying words are, "Long live the King," a cryptic foreshadowing that the person he follows identifies as some sort of king. After that, Archmage Traven explains to you that one of the spy necromancers they didn't manage to catch was known to make regular visits to the alien ruins of Nin Yon Twill. Now that he is known to be a necromancer, the ruin is now suspected of being a necromancy lair. As such, they have sent a spy of their own to that ruin to become a double agent for the necromancers and try and find out what they're up to. Unlike in the original version of this quest, however, they aren't sending you to investigate because the spy has broken contact with the guild. Instead, you are sent to retrieve the spy's first report about the necromancer's agendas. This explains why you were being sent alone, because you were merely a courier. This, once again, establishes the guild as competent and well organized. Instead of the player character doing all the work for the guild while everyone else just sits around and occasionally farts, this questline makes it clear that you are only one cog in a machine, merely one pawn on the board. So when you get to Nan Yan Twill, the spy you are meant to meet up with greets you at the door with a smile. However, he isn't there to give you his report. He wants to invite you to join the Necromancers. In the original, the double agent was killed by the Necromancers after they discovered his true identity through unknown means. But in this version, he is seduced by them. This wasn't a premeditated decision on his part either. He absolutely enlisted with the Necromancers with every intention of carrying out the double agent mission he was given. Instead, the power the Necromancers offered him persuaded him to switch sides almost immediately after enlisting. During his initiation into the Necromancers, he was in such awe of what power he could wield for himself that he decided to join them for real, and the other Necromancers were never even privy to the fact that he was originally supposed to be a double agent. Why this change? Because once again it raises the stakes, but in a different manner than before. As you know by this point in the questline, the lure of necromantic power had seeped into every hall in Cyrodiil, so we know the problem was widespread, but this just cranks the problem up to 11. Archmage Treven obviously selected this guy to be the spy because he trusted that guy not to defect to the other side for realsies. This spy not only did the very thing Treven hoped he wouldn't do, but he did it in record time. This builds up the Necromancers and the power they offer their recruits as being as addictive as crack. Like crack, the only way to truly avoid becoming addicted to it is to avoid exposure to it altogether. So you dispatch the rogue spy and have the option of clearing out the remainder of the dungeon, although this is optional. You return to Draven and report these events to him. He is astonished that his close friend would not only betray the guild, but would do so almost immediately. He explains that this friend of his had seen the power of necromancy before and had never even hinted that he was interested in being one of them. One thing is certain, these are no ordinary necromancers. Draven now realizes that they are dealing with a power they cannot possibly comprehend. So after that, you are sent to pick up a standard report from a local guild hall. This is the same guild hall you got your Mages Guild recommendation from, so this also gives you a chance to catch up with your old friends. But when you get there, you find it in shambles. Even the areas that aren't supposed to be accessible to non-guild members are now overrun with necromancers. Wait, how is that even possible? Remember, as I pointed out earlier, the local guild halls are supposed to have magical barriers keeping non-members out. So you dispatch the necromancers, eventually making your way up to the bedroom of the guild hall leader. Just as you enter, a necromancer with his back turned to you disappears in a puff of smoke, just before you can get a good look at his face. Just as he disappears, the sole survivor of this guild attack dispels his own invisibility spell and speaks to you, telling you that Mana Marco, the King of Worms, disabled the guild's enchantments to allow the necromancers to ransack the place. As the sole survivor of this guild hall, he is now the leader of this guild hall and therefore is giving himself a recommendation to the Arcane University. Now, why is this better than the original version of this quest? For starters, because this is the guild hall you got the recommendation from, it instantly makes the attack a lot more personal than in the original. You developed an attachment to these characters. Their deaths actually mean something to you. Second, having Mana Marco disable the guild's defenses is an excellent showing of power for those who haven't played Daggerfall. In the last quest, the power was so great that it was able to seduce Traven's closest friend after only a single day. But what exactly that entailed is left up to mystery. Here, Mana Marco accomplishes something tangible and specific, but it also raises the stakes by suddenly making the guild vulnerable. No longer can the Arcane University hide behind their magic gates to protect them from attacks. They may as well just be out in the open. Third, By having Mana Marco's presence be revealed for the first time here, instead of the quest information at a price, the guild doesn't look completely incompetent by taking several days to deliberate on how to act on this extremely ominous message. So after you report the news to Traven, he calls an emergency meeting for the Council of Mages. Only this time we actually get to meet the council and we actually get to participate in the meeting. This meeting would have dialogue not unlike that seen in Skyrim's Civil War questline. The guild hall leaders, including the sole survivor of the attacked guild hall, each allow their own personalities to shine through, giving the members of the guild some much-needed character development. Traven in particular gets his backstory told in full. Turns out, a lifetime ago, his wife and children, one of which was less than a year old, were killed by necromancers, and he was supposed to be the next in their experiments, but he just barely managed to escape. All his life, he regrets escaping himself rather than ensuring that at least one of his family managed to escape instead of him, and he has despised necromancy ever since. So after only a few minutes of deliberation, rather than a few days, they resolve to take the bull by the horns. Cylorn is another Iliad ruin that one of the spies they discovered while you were off at Vatican was known to frequent, so they decide to send a group of battle mages, including you, to storm the tower. Rather than become a spy for the necromancers, your goal is simply to clear out a necromancer ruin. Once it is cleared out, the Council of Mages will temporarily relocate there. Since they can no longer rely on their own magical barriers, their only hope for survival is to go into hiding. When you clear out Cylorn, the Arch-Necromancer of that dungeon will have a colossal black soul gem in his inventory, as well as a note from Mana Marco stating that this was to be filled, preferably with a high-ranking Mages Guild officer and ideally Traven himself, and then delivered to Mana Marco so he won't run the risk of destroying his own body when he initiates his master plan to destroy the Arcane University. By reading this note, Traven realizes that whoever possesses this colossal black soul gem, provided that it is filled with a soul, becomes immune to Mana Marco's power. In this version, this isn't something that Traven just somehow knows. It's something he learns through the guild's own triumphs. So Traven decides to make the sacrifice himself. However, because of the character development he received during the council meeting, we now sympathize with him. He is doing this for two reasons. One, to be reunited with his family in the Soul Care, something he most likely will never get the chance for again unless he takes up necromancy himself. And two, so he can finally atone for his decision to leave his family to die rather than save one or all of them at the cost of his own life. Because there is only one colossal black soul gem, only one person can confront Mana Marco. A small army of battle mages won't work. So for Traven's last request, he asks the player character to be that chosen one, as he is the only one who has come face to face with the power that Mana Marco has, and hasn't been seduced by their power. This way, there is actually an in-universe explanation for why the player character is the chosen one to save the day and defeat Mana Marco, whereas in the original, the player character was solely responsible for resolving the conflict simply because he's the player character. So you head over to Echo Cave. To make this dungeon crawl unique, let's make it so that it's a boss gauntlet. There are only 4 enemies in the dungeon except for Mana Marco, but all of them are the equivalent of arch-necromancers from many other dungeons. So you have to acquire the keys from their bodies to unlock the chambers leading to Mana Marco. Once you're there, Mana Marco can't attack you directly because you have the Colossal Black Soul Gem, but he still has a variety of potent abilities at his disposal, including teleportation, the raising of zombies from the dead, and filling the entire room with poison gas that he's immune to but which damages you and bypasses poison resistance. This would make the final boss of this questline extremely unique, but it also demonstrates why he was such a huge threat. Even when he can't attack you, he still finds a way to attack you, because he's Mana f***ing Marco, bitches! This version of the questline may have fewer quests and take fewer hours to complete than the version we find in the game, but this is certainly a case of quality over quantity. What the questline lacks in length, it makes up for tenfold in how memorable it would be. With my version, the stakes feel genuinely huge. More importantly, the guild comes off as competent, efficient, and strong. You feel like it's an honor to be part of the guild, rather than the only one who's even remotely capable of accomplishing anything other than sitting around and smiling. It is the collective actions of the guild, not merely the player, which ultimately stops Mana Marco. The stakes are constantly going up during the quest line, but never in a way that seems entirely redundant of the previous quest. Each quest feels unique, and the stories behind each quest all feel like logical steps towards ending the Necromancer menace. When characters die, their deaths mean something. Those moments are true gut punches, and they really pull the rug out from under the player's feet, because these characters actually receive some character development, and we actually get to know them. Overall, I believe my version of this questline is a huge improvement over what we find in the game. So what do you guys think? And that will do it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, be sure to subscribe for more in-depth story analysis of your favorite video games, and be sure to check out some of my Let's Plays where I take a more lighthearted approach to these games and just have a good time. In the meantime, however, I am Acer Thorn, and I will see you guys later.